Welcome to Mind Your Business Podcast, your new space for all things business, from startup to enterprise. We're dedicated to bringing you powerful topics. You will receive insider secrets, expert tips, industry trends, and access to masterclasses. We will be diving deep into what really matters for your growth. We encourage you to go big, build, inspire, and grow. This isn't just a podcast, it's a resource, a roadmap, and a whole vibe. Follow us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Let's get started with your host, Tasha.
Hey everyone, it's Tasha, your host for Mind Your Business Podcast. Thank you all for joining. We're going to share bold ideas, real conversations, and expert insight for entrepreneurs, business owners, and aspiring visionaries. Let's jump right in. Today, we've got an exciting episode lined up for you. We have Tamra Helm, who is a U.S. Air Force veteran, mother of four, and the founder of Live By Your Design, a coaching and consulting brand dedicated to helping families, entrepreneurs create financial freedom and personal alignment as a finance and wellness coach. Tamra empowers others to design lives rooted in purpose, not by default, but by design. Her work blends practical financial strategy with mindset and wellness coaching, showing clients how to build wealth without sacrificing who they are. Welcome to the show, Tamra. We are glad to have you here today. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you, Tasha. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining again. So we'll jump right in, Tamra, and just thank you, first of all, for your service to this country. And I'm going to start with the question there. How did you actually decide that you wanted to join the military?
I grew up in a small town in Oregon, and I've always sought adventure, and it was really important to kind of branch out. So before I joined the military, I actually joined a domestic Peace Corps, it's AmeriCorps. And so I spent a year just traveling the US and learning to work with my hands, work on a team and things like that. So when I got back home and I went back to my old job and things like that, I had realized I had evolved past staying in my hometown. And my dad was actually the one who's like, why don't you join the Air Force? And I was like, the military, I never thought of that. And he served a couple years, and that was it. That idea sparked, and I had joined, and I think I left 6 months later. So it was a very amazing experience. I spent 12 years active duty Air Force, and lived in Europe for 6 years. I was able to travel, do all those things. So I just really had such a wonderful career. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And as an entrepreneur and a mother of four, you are juggling a lot. So like with most things in life, right, you feel like confetti is thrown up in the air and you're trying to pull down the pieces and put the puzzle all together. Another question, just really quickly in reference to your military experience, how do you think that prepared you for your entrepreneurial journey?
I think that's a really amazing question, just because in the military, you learn to balance a lot, and your commitment to the military is above all, but you still have this family commitment, and you learn a lot of trades and crafts and a lot of dedication. And I think I've always been able to juggle a lot of things. And I think the military just pulled that out, that discipline and all the things that I needed to really succeed as an entrepreneur, because this is not for the faint of heart. It's very hard to come in here and build something from scratch. And I think because I've had so many tools, I did IT, I've done quality assurance, I've done all these different skills, and really developed those things that I can see it from a whole picture and that lens that's allowed me to come in and really build this business.
And Tamra, can you just basically and briefly just take us through your business model and what do you actually do as far as for your business?
Right. And so as a financial coach, really, I work on helping families understand where they're at currently in their financial strategy. A lot of us don't realize that we could be enhancing and beefing up what we're doing. So me personally, when I got out of the military, I didn't take a pension. I didn't really have a good retirement strategy. So it required me to figure out what is it I'm supposed to be doing? And there's so much knowledge and there's so much noise that we have to break through. But you have to start with what's your vision. And so when I take a client through an experience, it's going to be different for everyone. And it's the education as far as what does a retirement strategy need? How has it evolved in the last 50 years? A lot of that pressure is now on the employee or the business owner to figure out what their strategy is. And so we use the 4 buckets of wealth strategy. Your income is going to come out of one of those 4 buckets, and one or all of those 4 buckets, I should say. But what does that look like for each person? What's important? If you have a family, what kind of protection do you want to have for them? So the strategy is really tailored to the client that I'm working with. And we just continue to build it out and evolve from there. This is not a one-time set it and forget it type of thing. We look at it continuously because we want to expand. We want to really look for opportunities to grow our finances.
Right. Thank you for that. So you talked a little bit about, just being prepared. So transitioning from the military into, from my understanding, into the workforce, right? Into the public sector, but into the workforce. And then from there, taking the leap into possibly your career to your calling, or just from a career into entrepreneurship. From that standpoint, you talked about preparedness. Share with us a few, hindsight being 2020, and why many of us may be unprepared for the future from a financial standpoint. A lot of folks who are in organizations or in the corporate arena may have a 401k, or may have had the opportunity to roll funds over into an IRA, may have stock option plans, and then sitting outside of that may invest independently. But why don't many people understand how to plan for the future, or how to instigate healthy habits? And can you share a few of those with us? And then maybe what, upon your research and just being in the field, why do you think many people are unprepared?
I think that a lot of people are unprepared because everyone has an origin story around money, right? So if we believe we have to work hard for money, you think that you're gonna keep working, you're gonna make money, but you don't know how to keep it. And a lot of these are observations that we're watching as we're growing up, and we don't realize how much that plays a role in our adult lives. And so I think the first thing is to really understand, hey, what's our relationship with money? Do we believe that money is meant to empower us? Do we believe that it's the root of all evil? So when we really get to the heart of your belief system, then you're able to evolve your thinking. I think a lot of times when I meet with clients, they get to that point where they realize they don't know what they don't know. Some people think that they're okay, and that's because they believe their employer packaging it's going to take them to the promised land. But in reality, if you don't know how much you need in retirement, and you're only saving 6 to 10% every year towards your retirement, how is that going to make the millions that you probably need in retirement, right? So again, it comes down to what's the origin story? What's the relationship with money? Because you can't change that habit or that behavior if you don't know where you come from and you pull that apart. I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back, but you'd be amazed where people are ending up recognizing that they need to do something different. And it comes in all walks of life. And I always say the sooner the better, but it's better to start now than never.
Right. I think just talking about, why and what our relationship actually is with money, just from an individual standpoint, taking the leap. And some of us feel that we have a little bit of a comfort zone, maybe not complacent, because we still have aspirational dreams, even when you're working for an organization versus just working for yourself. The grind and grit can be a little bit different, where the comfort zone may come into play, that if from my pay period, I have X amount percentage that's going into a retirement fund or a mutual fund, per se, and then maybe there's a company match, maybe there isn't, but coming out of that, that you have something, right? Yeah. So from an entrepreneur, I'm going to kind of ask the same question that was based on individuals. What is something that you believe that small business owners should know as far as trying to invest? Where do we get the money to invest? Because it may not be as disciplined as money automatically coming out of a pay period, or is that something that could be set up? So for an entrepreneur, what would be your advice?
Coming up next, after a quick word from our sponsor, we're diving into setting boundaries for real work-life balance and sharing some honest insight with an aha moment you'll want to replay. Stick around. It's all coming up right here on the Mind Your Business podcast.
Mind Your Business podcast is sponsored by Optimal Metamorphosis Group. Optimal Metamorphosis Group is your trusted partner in transforming businesses and elevating entrepreneurs. Whether you need emerging solutions like biometrics or AI, or support in operational optimization, think workforce development, project management, business continuity, resilience, or administrative infrastructure. They have got you covered. Visit myomgllc.com and start your transformation today.
Welcome back to Mind Your Business podcast. If you're just tuning in, we're here with Tamra Helm, CEO of Live by Your Design, who is sharing with us where we can begin to start saving.
You can do annual contributions rather than trying to do month to month, which is what most people do in a 401k. They're having something taken out of their paycheck. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, it's like you want to keep as much money as you can. And one of the ways that you keep as much money as you can is you invest it and you save it for yourself for later. There's a lot of amazing strategies out there. The 401k is not my favorite as far as what it looks like for most people. It can be a part of your strategy, but it shouldn't be all of your strategy. The majority of people that I see are relying heavily on their 401k. But when it comes to being an entrepreneur, there's places that you can invest where it's tax-free. There's places that you can leverage life insurance to make sure it covers down on your business. And God forbid something happens to you, it might buy out your partner so your family can take your business. It's such an important aspect of your buy and sell agreement, how you really make sure that your business can thrive and that you're passing it to your legacy if that's something that you desire. So it's just different for every business owner, but there's just so many options out there for them.
What areas do you specialize in as far as when you're helping your clients look at a wealth strategy or planning for the future? What area do you concentrate in?
I think that the majority of my is financial literacy. So education comes first. Like I can teach you all the things. It's what you choose to do with them. At the end of the day, the people I work with, they're their best financial advisors as far as what they believe will take them to that next level. I definitely specialize in leveraging life insurance to protect your assets, your family, and to grow cash value. That's one thing that I'm very, very passionate about because I feel like it's the Swiss Army knife of what people need. We talk about life insurance and we get that icky feeling like, oh, it's a scam. I would agree that that's what most people are being sold, that there's so many other options out there. Most of us don't invest the difference and term runs out. So it's really understanding where life insurance is leveraged and how it can fit into your strategy and how it will serve you beyond your life and the next generation, because you can use it while living, but people don't understand that fully.
Okay, so I know that that's something that we definitely probably want to put a pin in as far as life insurance is concerned. And I think just the different options, but to your point about the financial literacy, and we have a whole month in April, right, which will need to get you back on again in April so you can share additional points. It's just the education around it. And I think that's a great point to bring up when you said that it's never too early. Right. So you got to start somewhere. We are going to just think about for the audience, for those that will be listening, those that will be tuning in, whether it's on YouTube or on someone's favorite podcast platform, as we're listed on all of those. If someone is planning, and what would be a few takeaways for the audience as far as how would they track cash flow? How do they protect their income? Where do I even start? Like if I want to begin saving and in a tax advantage way. And I think that's probably going to be a little bit of a tricky question because the tax brackets just changed for 2026. And I know that we will not see that reflected until 2027. For most of us, but if I want to begin saving in a tax advantage way, Any implications there? Where can they go to seek guidance instead of guessing? I know that was several questions in there, but we can just start with the first one. Where do we start with tracking cash flow?
It's going to be different for everyone. So, and everyone has a visual, they want to visually represent their money in different ways. And, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a family trying to save, I have a great partner that I would recommend as far as what does it look like from a budgeting perspective. But again, you want to start with what your fixed amounts are, and then where is there room for you to potentially cut costs? And that's something that we could deeply analyze with any client. If you don't know where you want to end up, we got to start with the end in mind so we can reverse engineer what that looks like for you. If you want to have $2 million in the bank, well, we probably should cut out some of these costs, and we should really change that relationship with money.
Okay. Yes. Because if you're working for an organization and pretty much your income there, it's steady, right? You may get paid just depending on what type of structure you're in, once a month or twice a month or weekly. So that's pretty consistent income. And sometimes we receive the income, we don't think about it. We're just paying bills, or it's time to purchase clothes or shoes if you have children. So that's going to be like every school year, right? Supplies, all these different things. And so sometimes we're just spending money without even tracking it, right? Because we know that it's coming in, it comes in, it goes out, and then you look up and it's like, I don't have anything to save.
Yeah.
But if we just kind of monitor what it is that we're doing, then I think maybe that can start a first step, monitoring what it is versus haphazardly swiping the card like money grows on trees, right? And I'm saying that because I have totally been guilty of that, just swiping the card because I know the money's in there. As far as protecting your income, we can put our money into the bank. A lot of folks are no longer putting cash underneath mattresses, so to speak. But, what are some ways that we can protect income that we may not be privy to?
Think about investments. Everything lives in the stock market. Everything's either lives in the stock market or is tied to the stock market. There's no kind of way around it. If you want to grow, there's the stock market that is a part of that, right? When we think of your investment strategies, the downside is if the market crashes like 2008, right? What happened to all those families who lost 38% of whatever they had in those accounts overnight? So there is no protection when it's sitting in the stock market. And on top of that, you're paying taxes later. And so do we think taxes are going to go up or down, right? Those are things that you have to think about when it comes to protecting your assets. Sometimes people will leverage annuity, and that's your guaranteed income. And there's index strategies tied to that so that your annuities don't lose in the stock market. They might be tied to that. That all depends on age. We wouldn't always recommend this for a really young person. And then again, I go back to index universal life policies because they're the Swiss Army knife. They're tied to the stock market, but when the stock market starts to crash, you lock in your gains. And making sure that you are finding that balance between all of those things would be the way that you kind of protect it. So if you're waiting for the market to rebound, well, you at least have your safety nets over here. That's what I would recommend for people.
Oh, that was some good information. We definitely need to be post this conversation, beginning saving in a tax advantage way, especially with the tax bracket changing, and folks may be a little, have a little bit of anxiety around what's going to happen. I was thinking about this the other day. I was saying, we're walking around with like clenched fists, just trying to hold what we got, right? Yeah. Because, things are so volatile right now. Stocks and other forms or instruments, many of us may feel like we're within some times where we got to just, cling tighter to what it is that we have. So, right now may be tough for folks to actually save within, the current economy and state that we're in. So what would be some best practices or best advice that you would have to begin saving in a tax advantage way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's tax advantage because I think about right now in our current situation, have your safety net, have your emergency fund that's liquid, that's sitting in a savings account. I don't love that more than 3 to 6 months because it's not doing anything for you, right? Savings accounts is like 0.01% you're gaining on interest, which is like pennies on the dollar. Are you able to sustain life for at least 3 to 6 months? There's a level of authority we need to give ourselves and to really give to our money, that our money needs a place.
Right.
We don't have to spend everything we get, even though we want to. So I would say saving 3 to 6 months would be your very first step to make sure you're safe. And then to get to that tax advantage would be meeting with me, a financial specialist that was going to give you that clarity. I always do the very first session to make sure that we're good fits to work together and to really give you a picture of where you are and where you could go based off of my personal recommendations. And it's up to us to do our own research. We live in the digital age. We live in a time where we are so responsible for our retirements, everything, right? Meet with people who are going to help at least shape some idea for you to give you the right direction.
You brought up a great point, because we always hear that at least have like 6 months of savings. Entry level into my career, it was always like in the back of your head, have that 6 months. And that always seemed like a lot of money to try to have just sitting somewhere, especially if you're just starting out in your career, you're in your 20s, like you're coming out of college, or maybe the military, coming out of college with student loans that exceed more than a yearly salary. But now we're, able to maybe invest and go and speak with someone who actually can guide us through the process. So
it's very interesting. But if you think about where we get our information, it's all tribal knowledge. It's like, hey, Joe, what are you doing for your investments? That's how I started out, where it's like, oh, I should put money here. Bitcoin, what does that mean? We're just doing random things based off of what our friends are telling us and what we saw someone speak about. There's so much that you have to learn for yourself. And so coming into a clarity call so I can educate you first so you can make your best decision is how I really want to empower everyone.
Thank you so much for your time today, Tamra. We have reached, it looks like, the end of our session today. Definitely want to have you back on so you can drop more gems on us. We appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you, Tasha. Thanks for letting me come out here and talk about the scary money stuff that we all need to talk about, but we sometimes avoid. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, we do need to talk about that. And again, for everyone's listening, if you're watching, we just had a productive financial discussion with Tamra Helm, who is the founder of Live by Your. Everyone, you can listen or you can watch again on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again for joining Mind Your Business.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Mind Your Business Podcast, where we turn big ideas into bold moves. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if this episode gave you something to think about, share it with your fellow entrepreneurs, small business owners, or colleagues who are looking to do something big. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook under Optimal Metamorphosis Group for behind the scenes, updates, and bonus content. We're here to support your next level. Until next time, we are moving from startup to boardroom brilliance. And don't forget to mind your business.